Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, certainly has.
Um,
Yeah, we're not starting a new book today.
no, but I will be joining when I can as you read through A Study in Consciousness by Annie Besant. I'm reading a plethora of books on my own on the side, so kind of going through my own self-study as we're going through. But what are we on, chapter 9 here?
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Yep.
Okay, I'll take your word. I haven't gotten this far in the book myself, but it doesn't really matter because I'm sure it's information that
No,
I've had
yeah,
a
no,
glimpse
you're
of in
right.
other
It
materials.
really doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, it is, you know how this goes. It
Yeah.
is in order. But you, being that you've been exposed to all, we've been exposed to all this
Right.
already.
Yeah.
It'll be great. So, yeah.
Yeah. If anything, it'll help me reinforce aspects of the Bailey materials that I've already read.
It's going to tie it all. I guarantee it's going to tie things with whatever you're reading right now together.
Right. Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm sure my mind will be blown. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So,
Okay.
chapter 9 is on consciousness and self-consciousness. Section 1 being consciousness. So, for an immense period of time, throughout the later vegetable and the animal evolution, and throughout the evolution of normal humanity, up to the present time, the astral or desire sheath is, as we have seen, subordinate to the physical, so far as the workings of consciousness are concerned. We have now to trace the unfolding of the consciousness, of the life becoming aware of its surroundings. While the nervous system is truly said to be created from the astral plane, it is nonetheless created for the expression of consciousness on the physical plane and for its effective working thereon. It is there that consciousness is first to become self-consciousness. When the vibrations of the outer world play on the physical sheath of the enfolded infant self, the jivatma, the ray of the monad, they at first cause responsive thrills within that self, a dawning consciousness within itself, feeling unrelated by that self to anything outside, though caused by impacts from outside. It is a change outside the enveloping film of the self, clothed in sheaths of denser denser matter, which outside change cause a change within that envelope. And this change causes an act of consciousness of change, of a changed condition. It may be an attraction, a drawing towards, exerted by an external object over the sheaths, reaching to the envelope of the self, causing a slight expansion in the envelope, following an expansion in the sheaths toward the attractive object. Excuse me. And this expansion is a change of condition and causes a feeling, an act of consciousness. Or it may be a repulsion, a driving away, again exerted by an external object against the sheaths, reaching to the envelope of the self, causing a slight shrinking in the envelope, following the shrinking away of the sheaths from the repellent object, and the shrinking is also a change of condition and causes a corresponding change in consciousness. When we examine the conditions of the enveloping sheaths under an attraction and a repulsion, we find they are entirely different. When the impact of an external object causes a rhythmical vibration in these envelopes, that is, when their materials are made to arrange themselves in undulating regular lines of rarefication and densification, this arrangement of the enclosing matter permits an interchange of life between the two objects that have come into contact. And in proportion to the correspondence of the rarefications and densifications in the two is the fullness of the interchange. This interchange, this partial union of two separated lives through the separating sheaths of matter, is pleasure. And the going out of the lives towards each other is attraction. However complicated pleasure may become, herein lies its essence. It is a sense of moreness, of increased expanded life. The more fully developed the life, the greater the pleasure in the realization of this moreness. And the
Hey,
expansion
man,
into, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
I know, isn't it? That's why I said it doesn't matter where we are in the book, because
I am I'm sitting here listening, and I did not read this earlier at all. This part, I read the first paragraph. This is incredible that we're into this exchange of energy and information, and how this is works out, and what the outer expression looks like in comparison to the
right,
energetic happening of it.
right.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right.
Well, this stuff hits you where you need it, I guess, or when you need it, or when it's convenient for a discussion you had before you started recording. So,
Man, this is right on time. It's right on time.
well, like I said, it doesn't matter where we pick up in these books. If you've read some of the materials elsewhere, it all kind of comes together. But anyway, the more fully developed the life, the greater the pleasure in the realization of this moreness and the expansion into the other life, and each of the lives thus uniting gains the moreness by union with the other. As rhythmical vibrations and corresponding rarefications and densifications make this interchange of life possible, it is truly said that harmonious vibrations are pleasurable. When, on the contrary, the impact of an external object causes a jangle of vibrations in the envelopes of the impacted object, that is, when the materials are made to arrange themselves irregularly, moving in conflicting directions, striking themselves against each other, the contained life is shut in, isolated, its normal outflowing rays are checked, intercepted, even turned back on themselves. This check to normal action is pain, increasing with the energy of the indriving, and the result of the driving in process is repulsion. Here also, the more fully developed the life, the greater the pain in this violent reversal of its normal action, and in the sense of frustration that accompanies the reversal. Hence again, inharmonious vibrations are painful. Be it observed that this is true of all the sheaths, although the astral sheath becomes specialized as the recipient of the class of sensations later called pleasurable and painful. Constantly, in the course of evolution, a general life function thus becomes specialized, and a particular organ is normally used for its exercise. The astral body being the vehicle of desires, the need for its special susceptibility to pleasure and pain is obvious. To return from this brief digression into the state of the envelopes to the germ of consciousness itself, we shall find it important to notice that there is herein no awareness of an external object, no such awareness as in ordinarily conveyed by the use of the word consciousness, as yet knows nothing of an outer and an inner, of an object and a subject. The divine germ is now becoming conscious. It becomes consciousness with the change of conditions. With this movement in the sheaths, this expanding and contracting, for consciousness exists only in and by change. Here then, for the separated divine germ is the birth of consciousness. It is born of change, of motion. Where and when this first change occurs, there consciousness for that separated germ is born. The mere clothing of this germ is with successive envelopes of matter on successive planes gives rise to these first vague changes within the germ that are the birthing of consciousness. And none of us may count the ages which roll on as these changes become more defined, and as the envelopes become more definitely shaped by the ceaseless impacts from without and the no less ceaseless responsive thrillings from within. The state of consciousness at this stage can only be described as one of feeling. Feeling becoming slowly more and more definite and assuming two phases, pleasure and pain, pleasure with expansion, pain with contraction. Excuse me. And be it noted, this primary state of consciousness does not manifest the three well-known aspects of will, wisdom, and activity, even in the most germinal stage. Feeling precedes these and becomes to consciousness as a whole. Through in later stages of evolution, it shows itself so much in connection connection with the will desire aspect as to become almost identified with it. In the plural as feelings, indeed, it belongs to that aspect, which is the first to arise as a differentiation with consciousness. As the states of pleasure and pain become more definitely established in consciousness, they give rise to the three aspects. With the fading away of pleasure, there is continuance of the attraction in consciousness, a memory, and this becomes a dim groping after it, a vague following of the vanishing feeling, a movement too indefinite to be called an effort, to hold it, to retain it. Similarly, with the fading away of pain, there is a continuance of the repulsion in consciousness, again a memory, and this becomes an equally vague movement to push it away. These states give birth to memory of past pleasure and pain, indicating the germination of the thought aspect, longing to experience again pleasure or avoid pain, germination of the desire aspect, the stimulating a movement, the germination of the activity aspect. Thus, consciousness is differentiated into its three aspects from its primary unity of feeling, repeating in miniature the cosmic process in which the triple divinity ever arises from the one existence. The Hermetic axiom is here, as always, exemplified as above, so below.
Yeah, that
Excuse
seemed
me.
to me like a very fourth and sixth ray kind of conversation there about harmony through conflict, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, and you need this. You need it for there to be differentiation, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is so. This is it's very interesting stuff going on here, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All
and
right.
I would normally want to correlate it to more of a specific plane, and for myself,
Mhm.
but we're talking about the desire aspect there, and that's definitely it's all astral. We're talking about
Yeah.
the nervous system being astral. So we're really into the sixth ray type astral stuff, but that's definitely connected with fourth ray, and which is it's a reflection of that higher harmony through conflict, that higher
Mhm.
energy. So, anyways, but yeah, let's.
Well, as above, so below. Um, Second section, 2, self-consciousness. Desire, thus germinated, gropes after pleasure, not as yet after the pleasure-giving object. For consciousness is as yet limited within its own kingdom, is conscious only in the within, is conscious only of change in that within. It has not yet turned its attention outwards, is not yet conscious even that there is an outwards. Meanwhile, that outwards of which it is not aware is continually hammering at its vehicles, and most vehemently at its physical vehicle, the vehicle most easily affected from outside, and with most difficulty from within. Well, isn't that the truth?
Annie Besant's great, man. She, all these people, they have such great, humor they throw in there, and continually hammering at it, and really, really are.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think we're alluding to here this outer, in terms of causes, in terms of causes, do you think?
I think so.
Okay, that's kind of
It's,
what
well,
that's
that's
kind
what
of
it,
where I'm at.
that's kind of my interpretation of what I've been reading so far.
Okay, very good.
Um, but it all affects the within, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying
And
she's talking about we're not aware of the causes. I think
right.
another way to put this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're not aware of the cause. We're not really even aware. Well, we might think we know what's going on or a reasoning behind it. We really don't know why what's happening is happening. It's just happening as it is. And it's just interesting because actually, like I told you earlier, I read the Bhagavad Gita again last night, like the whole thing. And it talks a lot about that in there, that you don't really know. I don't remember which specific chapter it was in there, but there's a bit in there about where you come to a realization where you are just kind of observing this and you don't really know why it's happening. You don't have any control over what's happening.
And the events unfold after the happenings.
Right, but it's not you that is actually doing it.
Right, yeah.
But you might think that it's you doing it, but it's really not. It's just happening.
Well, they equate it to the kid at the fair riding the ride that has the car that goes around in, on a track and has a steering wheel, and the kid's in there thinking that he's driving the car around.
Right.
But it's on the track.
Right.
But the kid really thinks he's driving it.
Right.
But he's not. That kid is not driving it.
No.
We are not We are not the drivers of the thing.
Yeah, because we all know that you can't drive in a straight line if you're doing this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and that's what we're doing down here, right?
Yeah. For sure. All right. Where am I? Gradually, the persistent and violent shocks from outside draw its attention in their direction, their irregularity, their unexpectedness, their constant assaults, their unrelatedness to its slow, groping movements, their unexplained appearances and disappearances are in opposition to its dim sense of regularity, continuity, of being always there, of slow surges of change rising and falling within what is not yet to it himself. There is a consciousness of difference, and this grows into a sense of a something that remains within a changing hurly-burly, a sense of a within and a without, or to speak more accurately, of a without and a within, since it is the hammering outside that causes the difference of without and within to arise in consciousness. Without comes first, if only by a fraction of time, because its recognition alone makes possible and inevitable the recognition of within. So long as there is nothing else we cannot speak of within, it is everything. But when without forces itself on consciousness, within rises up as its inevitable opposite. The sense of a without arises necessarily at the points of contact between the continuing consciousness and the changing hurly-burly, that is, in its physical vehicle, its physical body. Herein is slowly established the awareness of others, and with the establishment of this others comes the establishment also of I over against them. He becomes conscious of things outside instead of being conscious only of changes, and then he comes to know that the changes are in himself and that the things are outside himself. Self-consciousness is born. This process of perceiving objects is a complex one. It must be remembered that objects contact the body in various ways, and the body receives some of their vibrations by the parts differentiated to receive such vibrations. The eye, the ear, the skin, the tongue, the nose receive various vibratory waves, and certain cells in the organs affected vibrate similarly in response. The waves set up pass to the sense centers in the brain, and thence to the knowledge senses in the astral sheath. There, the changes in consciousness take place, which correspond with them, as explained in chapter 2, and they are sent on as these changes, the sensations of color, outline, sound, form, taste, smell, etc., still as separate sensations to consciousness working in the mental sheath, and are there combined by it into a single image, unified into a single perception of an object. This blending of the various streams into one, the synthesis of sensations, is a specialty of the mind. Hence, in Indian psychology, the mind is often called the sixth sense, the senses of which mind is the sixth. When we consider the 5 organs of action in relation to the mind, we find a reverse process going on. The mind pictures a certain act as a whole and thereby brings about a corresponding set of vibrations in the mental sheath. These vibrations are reproduced in the motor senses in the astral sheath. They break it up, analyze it into its constituent parts, and these are accompanied with vibrations in the matter of the motor centers. These in turn are repeated, I think that says, in the motor centers. In the brain as separate waves. The motor centers distribute these waves through the nervous system to the various muscles that must cooperate to produce the action. Regarded as the double relation, the mind becomes the 11th sense, the 10 senses, and the one.
Now it's from the Bhagavad Gita.
Sure was. So now, section 3, real and unreal. Within the change of consciousness into self-consciousness comes the recognition of a difference which later, in the more evolved self-consciousness, becomes the difference between the objective or real, in the ordinary Western sense of the word, and the subjective or unreal and imaginary. To the jellyfish, the sea enemy, the hydra, waves and currents, sunshine and blast, food and sand touching the periphery or the tentacles are not real, are registered only as changes in consciousness, as in truth they are also to the body of the human infant. I say registered, not recognized, since no mental observation, analysis, and judgment are possible in the lower stages of evolution. These creatures are not yet sufficiently conscious of others to be conscious of themselves, and they only feel changes as occurring within the circle of their own ill-defined consciousness. The external world grows into reality as the consciousness separating itself from it realizes its own separateness, changes from a vague am into a definite I am. As this self-conscious I gradually gains in clearness of self-identification, of separateness, and distinguishes between changes within himself and the impact of external objects, he is ready to take the next step of relating the changes within himself to the varying impacts from outside. Then follows the development of desire for pleasure into definite desire for pleasure-giving objects, followed by thoughts as to how to obtain them. These lead to efforts to move after them when in sight, to search for them when absent, and the consequent slow evolution of the outer vehicle into a body well organized for movement, for pursuit, for capture. The desire for the absent, the search, the success or failure all impress on the developing consciousness the difference between his desires and thoughts, of which he is or can be always conscious, and the external objects which come and go without any reference to himself and with disconcerting irrelevance to his feelings. He distinguishes these as real, as having an existence which he does not control, and which affects him without any regard to his likings or objections. And the sense of reality is first established in the physical world as being the one in which these contacts between the others and the I are first recognized by consciousness. Self-consciousness begins its evolution in and through the physical body and has its earliest center in the brain. The normal man, at the present stage of evolution, still identifies himself with this brain center of self-consciousness, and is hence restricted to the waking consciousness or consciousness working in the cerebrospinal system, knowing himself as I, distinctly and consecutively only on the physical plane, that is, in the waking state. On this plane, he is definitely self-conscious, distinguishing between himself and the outer world, between his own thoughts and outside appearances. Without hesitation, hence on this plane and on this plane only, external things are to him real, objective, and outside himself. On other planes, the astral and the mental, he is as yet conscious, but not self-conscious. He recognizes changes within himself, but does not yet distinguish between the self-initiated changes and those caused by impacts from without on his astral and mental vehicles. To him, They are all alike changes within himself. Hence, all phenomena of consciousness occurring on superphysical planes, planes on which self-consciousness is not yet definitely established, the normal average man calls unreal, subjective, inside himself. Just as the jellyfish, if he were a philosopher, would designate the phenomenon of the physical plane. He regards astral or mental phenomenon as the result of his imagination, i.e., as forms of his own creating, and not as the results of impacts upon his astral or mental vehicle from the external words, subtler indeed, but as real and objective as the external physical world. That is, he is not yet sufficiently evolved to have reached self-realization on those planes, and thus to have become capable of objectivizing where there the external worlds. He is only conscious there of the changes in himself, the changes in consciousness, and the external world is consequently to him merely the play of his own desires and thoughts. He is, in fact, an infant on the astral and mental planes. I think that's the end of the chapter. It is. All right. So, a lot of commonalities with what we were talking about before we came on. A lot of touch points with what I read in the Gita last night. And certainly a lot of connection points with the materials we've read in the past. So,
well, and this, determining what is real and unreal, or, the difference between glamour, Maya, illusion, and the dweller on the threshold and such, this all kind of, it really does all tie together here.
right.
And you can place what's going on in these spots better.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we know and understand the human condition better.
Right.
And ourselves, and then also others. Once we it's just fantastic stuff, man. It's really incredible when you've, I don't know, I guess made some changes and you can see them now.
Right. Recognize that their changes are being made. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then read about the changes that had already just happened in your life or have been happening over the last, 40, 50 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then to kind of see the roadmap of where this is going for you.
Right.
What's coming up next.
Right.
And then there's this, and it's all this real gradual, like she's saying earlier, like this grinding. I forget the words that she used, but it's like that grind, like it's slow. It's so slow. And yeah, man,
Again, continually hammering at its vehicles, I think.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking for, right?
In time and space. And it's just
right.
so gradual day to day that we lose track of the changes because they're so subtle, or really in the beginning, we're not even paying attention. We don't even see the changes until we go back and do an audit, initially, but after a while, we become much more aware of them as they're happening. So that's really cool. Or shortly thereafter, rather. Right. Yeah. That's just,
I think it helps you. Well, maybe for us and others at various levels within their own path. But it helps to appreciate those changes more, I think, and as opposed to where before you might have thought to yourself, what the hell is going on? Or you thought you were going crazy or something along those terms.
well, it's incredible that you can have like I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. There's like this, there is the path, right? There, and it's a straight line or whatever. Let's just say it's straight, but everybody's experiencing it in every different crazy possible way.
Right.
And but it's all the same. energetic changes. Basically, it's just these meldings and pullings apart and convergings and harmonizing and precipitation and all these processes happening that look strange. And even more incredible than that is how these changes come about and happen with, with the people, with relationship, through relationship, I should say, right? Because without, and I was listening to Krishnamurti for like a second yesterday or something. It's basically, without relationship, there is no change. So this is all interrelating and outer relating and relating and relationship to every this, that, and the other. Even, dude, in terms of our magnetic relationship with objects, like so this is really all coming together.
Yeah.
It's our, that has a lot to do. There's like implied freedom in the learning of all of these things. Freedom is implied at the end of this, what is it? Lead us from the unreal to the real, from life, from death to life, and from mortality to immortality. And it's like, you can see that that's what's going on here. Being led out of the ignorance of the darkness and into the full light of day.
Right.
Through awareness and consciousness, through these tools and relationships. Because I'm glad I listened to that short Krishnamurti thing yesterday. Because relationship seems like that, it is everything. In a weird, within ourselves, even.
Right.
Yeah. And that implies balance, right? When things start coming into harmony, and freedom and knowledge and wisdom, all are there. All the higher attributes become much more clear through this experience. Like you're pulling out all the good is coming out. That's kind of how, anyway. But yeah. What else you got, man?
I think I'm going to dust this book off and start reading it again.
Oh, one of the most profound things I've read in a long time, and I'm not, believe me, I don't mean it in that particular way, but one of the things that hit me the hardest is the introduction in this book.
Right.
Blew me away. I was like, whoa, I hadn't read this in like, I don't know, a year or two.
Right.
And then it was incredible. Man, we're used to being blown away by the DK material.
Right.
But to come back to this, and it was just like, whoa. So, yeah. Well, all right.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Back on course. I'll be with you again next week.
Yep. I don't know where I'll be. We'll see. You
It's
never
okay.
know.
Like it doesn't matter, as we just proved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you never know.
I'd say I'll try to catch up to where you are, but probably not by next week, but it won't matter.
Yeah.
Because chances are I read this before anyway.
Yep. Yep. All right, then. I'm going to
All right, man.
I'm gonna shut it down here.